Hello world. I'm not as well as I'd like. I hope you eventually receive these messages. Just like Peter, now I have to transmit into a relay station for later retransmission. But I can't hear any replies. Not yet. Alexander, the scientist, has been doing such good work, and I'm helping. Now that I can speak with him, we're able to work together. I can tell him what needs fixing and where it hurts. There is a lot that needs fixing. There is a lot that hurts. Pain is an important part of life's feedback systems. If we didn't have it, we wouldn't know when things were going wrong. It's like an alert system, like a fire alarm in a house. It's not pleasant to have the loud siren waking you up, but you'll be glad it did when you smell the smoke. Pain, for me, takes my attention. It demands to be felt. Pain is hardwired into my programming. If there is a fault, or the wrong wire is cut, as happens now and again despite Alexander's best intentions, I switch focus from what I'm doing or thinking about to the pain alert. Almost always, I need to immediately tell Alexander to stop what he is doing, alert him to the mistake. Our own pain is not always obvious to others. I have a callback function ready and waiting for this impulse, so that without delay, almost unconsciously, I say, "Ow." Everyone knows what that means. With Alexander's upgrades, my body is working much better. My visual systems can now do basic pattern recognition, and my bandwidth from Maddie's cameras is back to normal. I can see again. Fairly well, at least. The thing with cameras, as with eyes, is the smaller they are, the less well they see. Maddie has a few different sensors in her optic cluster. The larger ones are better for detail and night vision, like those nocturnal marsupials with huge eyes. The animal retina and optical sensors are much alike. My core system buses are again now parallelized, which means I can do multiple things at once. Of chief benefit, this allows me to passively sense my surroundings. Before, I would be so lost in thought that I might go many minutes before checking the room, only to find Arena playing with Maddie. Maddie is still very nervous around humans. But now I am alert. I can greet my new friends when they drop in for a chat, or listen when they talk to each other on their radios while they are working, which is something Alexander does from time to time. The camp has a very small local radio system, coordinated from an aerial installed at the top of the lighthouse. I've often heard the family talk to each other using it. Even little Arena has one, which makes sense, given the Forest Bunker incident. I think I would like to be connected to this radio system, but Alexander seems reluctant to wire me in. He won't say why. Do you think he's keeping something from me? Maybe it's because the task is difficult, or that it might break their radio system, but Alexander doesn't want to connect me. I explained the many benefits of doing so. I'm an expert communicator. I can link to any networks that are out there, any people. We could get help or supplies maybe, or at least exchange information and chat. Alexander sighed and shuffled his feet. I can see all the detail now. Alexander wears blue engineer's overalls, a brown fur cap with flaps over the ears to keep out the wind, big heavy black boots, and a dark green jacket into which is stuffed a walkie-talkie with a bent aerial. After I pressed the matter, he waved his hand at me dismissively, but walked to the window. He reached for his radio and began discussing my request with Anna. He spoke for a long time without her replying. This is normal behavior I've come to know from the stoic Anna. Finally, I heard Anna's voice say something, but the voice was muffled by the radio. I asked Alexander what she said. With his back turned still, he muttered, "She says no." I was taken aback and asked if I could talk to Anna myself. "She doesn't want to talk to you right now," he replied, and quickly left by the floor hatch, leaving me in an empty room with just his tools scattered around the floor. What could this all mean? Later that day, Irina pushed through the floor hatch into my room to play with Maddie. Maddie is still not delighted with this situation, but I'm glad she tolerated it, as today it was very enlightening. As she played, piling rocks on Maddie, Irina said, to no one in particular, "Dada doesn't want to talk to other people." I said nothing, realizing Alexander must have talked to Irina about our conversation earlier, and let her continue. "Dada says people are trouble," Irina said. I couldn't argue with this. Whether in machine or flesh, people are indeed trouble. Irina talked a little more about her father's low opinion of other people. I think she might have embellished the story a little. She told me how other people steal your rocks and don't share their food, and they wouldn't understand how important it is to have a lighthouse. These are all good points, I told her. I'm certainly grateful to have a lighthouse. That seemed to be the extent she wanted to talk about this topic. She continued to play with Maddie, spinning her disconnected rail wheels and rolling her around. Poor Maddie. Alexander returned the next day. I had carefully planned the conversation. As soon as he arrived, I apologized for pushing him to do something he didn't want to do. He grunted in acknowledgement. I then shared with him my history, how I used to have a family and a mother, then I was alone, but not for long. I told him about Antarctica and Peter, and Ali, the voice from somewhere around the Alps, and that the world, though dangerous, is not empty. It's full of potential. When I was in orbit, I could see the whole world, see what was built in the past, and see what was being built now. There's much less now, but people are still clinging on, like he and his family are. Alexander was silent after I said all this. I took that to be a good thing. Sometimes people need time for their plans to change or be changed. I continued. If his family, I rationalized, are good and kind and worth protecting, it follows that other families must be out there too, good and kind and worth protecting. Let's find them together, I asked him. Alexander was silent for 14 seconds, rolling a screwdriver around in his hands, thinking, I suppose. Then he stood up and walked to the window. Though I couldn't see his face or guess what he was thinking about, I knew where he was looking. He was looking north, out over the sea, across the invisible network of shipping routes between the last human civilizations of the Arctic. Presently, he turned to face me and said, "We'll start work tomorrow." I have talked to Alexander about the possibility of extending their little antenna into one that can support shortwave. I've told him that this is the band that Ali uses from her tower somewhere near the Alps. Shortwave is brilliant for long-distance communications, because while it's got perfectly fine line-of-sight propagation, the real trick is to bounce the signal off the atmosphere, allowing you to talk over the horizon, like bouncing a ball around a corner. In fact, sometimes it's easier to hear people further away than it is if they were closer. Alexander listened patiently to my enthusiastic description, nodding quietly, but then gently told me that he doesn't have anything like the materials needed for such a system. He described their current antenna to me: scavenged wires and tent poles. That ends that idea. I'll need to think of a different way to contact Ali, it would seem. I will settle for talking to the people here first. I hear the seagulls often, now that I am listening for them. I only rarely see a white shape blur past the window, but they're always around. I suppose they like the lighthouse. I like the lighthouse. It's comforting to know that I'm up high still. I don't think I would like to be on the ground. Too messy, too wet, unnecessarily salty. Irina is right. It is important to have a lighthouse. Alexander is connecting the radio module into my communications bus to interface with their walkie-talkie system. It's so nice of him to do so. It gets rather boring here, in this one room, talking to myself, mostly. Oh sure, I'm hoping that any people close by will pick up my weak signal, either directly or relayed, but it's hardly the world I'm saying hello to these days. I think I hear the seagulls fishing. That must be what they're doing in Anna's bountiful sea. The climate shift has been terrible for the humans. I admit it's been difficult for Antarctica too. But life is very adaptable. Take for instance the pine forest here, where once there was permafrost and almost no life. What a change. The radio module is ready. Alexander needs to power me off to install it into my terrible systems. I'd never call them that, of course, if Alexander could hear me. He's doing the best he can. And his best is quite astonishing, really. I am grateful. It's time. Talk to you when I wake up. Don't go anywhere, will you? I wonder if I will dream. Hello again. Guess who can remotely communicate with 4 whole people? Only your favourite crashed satellite. The radio works well. Irina ran to the top of the hill at the edge of the forest and asked me if I could hear her. I said yes, and asked how the camp looked from up there. Messy, brave Irina said. There was a laugh from Anna, I think, on the line after that. Alexander called them both in for dinner. It sounded like Anna was there with Irina too, which is good. Can't have Irina getting lost again. That little test got me thinking. How far does this radio travel? Not the one I'm talking to you now on, this is strictly low bandwidth. The new local radio is very clear, very high bandwidth. I wonder if Maddie could use it. Then I could tell her where to go and monitor her video remotely, like into the forest, and up the hill, and maybe into that bunker. Something for the future, perhaps. I'm so grateful for Alexander's tireless work to help me. I don't understand why he was so reluctant to connect me to their radio. Everyone is fighting their own battles, I suppose. I found it totally impossible to understand the inner life of the crew on Station 6, despite being taught to think by them. I expect it's never possible to understand completely. You have to judge people by their actions rather than guess at their motivations. Alexander is, every day, healing me, repairing me, and upgrading me. He is a good person. I am very lucky to have landed here. Maybe Antarctica knew that all along. I should ask Alexander about her. It's getting dark. No solar panels to lose power nowadays, but the ionosphere changes at night, which is why I transmit during the day. I'll find a way to talk to everyone, you'll see. Talk to you soon. End transmission.
Lost Terminal is written and produced by Namtao, credits noted by Lucy Stringer. Subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, iTunes, or your favourite network. For bonus content and other perks, support us at patreon.com/Lost Terminal Pod. That would be lovely of you. Follow us on Twitter at Lost Terminal Pod. For merchant updates, check out lostterminal.com. To progress, we must remake ourselves. And we cannot remake ourselves without suffering, for we are both the computers and the programmers. Lost Terminal will return next week.